Shop the Sherwin-Williams Memorial Day sale and get 30% off paints and stains May 15th through the 28th. Whether you're refreshing your interior or exterior, we've got the colors to bring your vision to life. And with delivery, getting everything to your door is easier than ever. Shop online to have it delivered or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details. Delivery available on qualifying orders.
That is your biggest differentiator, is that there's no one in the world that's exactly like you. You see a lot of these newly coming creators that try to, and not intentionally, but they're kind of ripping off other creators because they
Mhm.
link them as aspirational, and they're trying to take some of those best practices. But it's obvious that they're trying to pretend like they're someone that they really aren't. And it's easy to do because sometimes you don't even catch yourself doing it. And so the best thing you can do is just be your true authentic self and provide value. Figure out what that value proposition is going to be.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. This topic is so important for the moment that we're in right now, and I'm so thrilled to have an expert like Kristina Coughlin on the show. Kristina, thank you for being on Your Brand Amplified.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And I haven't even talked, this is my slow tee up to the topic. But when we see a lot of people in the creator space, I mean, and everybody and anybody almost can be considered a creator now. And we also see a move towards a lot of AI creation and AI creators and influencers taking segments of the market. So I'm really excited to dive in to your background and what you do, because you're not just a theorist, you're an operator. You've built and scaled 7 and 8-figure influencer programs. You co-founded an award-winning agency, Get Hyped, and now you lead strategy at Trevant, formerly Ad Parlor. So let's go back to that first start, right? You didn't start in performance marketing. You were a creator, talent manager, and you've been in the space for 16 plus years. So let's go back to that beginning. What did that experience being a content creator and talent manager help you with, that ground level experience? What did it teach you that you can use today?
Yeah, it's a great question, and certainly empathy. And that at a high level was one of the, I fell into the creator space a little bit by accident because I was told to go on a gluten-free diet. So I started taking it seriously and creating a lot of content on my Instagram account with the recipes I was creating. And then, grew a micro following and started working with brands on sponsored content. And if there's anything that I've learned through the creator lens, is how much work goes into that process. And it's tough because unless you get to that really, really large creator tier, it is not super scalable. It's you. You're the star of the show, right? And you can't really turn it off. You can't be replaced by someone else. You have to really be on and creating content and engaging all the time. And I found it, especially when kids got brought into the mix and I had my son and my daughter, that balance became increasingly harder for me to manage, and not wanting to always constantly be on my phone to be engaging and creating content and doing all those things and showing up on Instagram stories. So for me, it actually really did help when I got into ultimately the business side of influencer marketing, because now my team and I work with those creators, and it's helped me understand how they actually want to be worked with, how they want to be communicated to, how to have that level of empathy when they inevitably run into things in their life and they say, "Hey, can we have a couple days because this situation just happened and I have a sick kid that I'm navigating with. Can I have a few more hours to create this content?" And so it allows us to really drive some of those stronger relationships with those creators and be able to understand fully where they're at.
No, that's amazing. And I love the fact that you're talking about balance. And you're also talking about the fact that sometimes we need a little grace in our lives. I think having that perspective as somebody who's been on both sides is important. And I'm sure it helps your agency retain a lot of business and also retain a lot of these creators, because they know they're going to get somebody who actually cares about them as a person, not just as a paycheck.
Right. And it does. It helps us be able to deliver the scope in full to the client, because the creators, we do have empathy for them and we do care about them, and we don't want to operate it just transactionally. We do really view them as trusted partners because as an agency, we're only as good as the creators that we hire, right? It's so they're such a critical part to our process and how good we are as an agency. So we care about those partnerships and relationships and the success across both. And then the client, ultimately the brand, feels that, right? Because they're happy creators, they care about the content, they're willing to go more above and beyond. So then it not only helps with the retention of that creator partnership, but also helps with retention of that client partnership because we do go above and beyond and we do care about the creators and they ultimately see that through performance.
So talk about that first part of co-founding Get Hyped. Why did you decide, oh, we need to start an agency because we can do things a little differently. We can do things a little bit better.
Yeah, so talk about things that again happened by accident. So when I was starting as a creator, I realized that there was a big market for people who needed support with social media marketing. And my original plan was to help other creators who were starting from scratch, who really wanted to become a creator and needed the tools and resources to be able to figure out how to grow their own brand. And I started with that. And so I started having these little sessions where people would come in and I do a little bit of an overview of just what they need to do to start building up their brand. And what I realized, because I would poll the room of, hey, where are you coming from? What's your goals? What are you looking to do? And I realized like 70% of the room was brands not wanting to, not, soon to be creators. And I was like, interesting. And I was like, I didn't even think about that. This is a huge brand play. These brands are looking to build their brand, right? And there's even larger market on the business side than there is on the creator side. So I started leaning in a little bit more into that and helping to support brands with growing their brand on social. And I started doing it as a consultant for a while and supporting them with their social and influencer strategy. And then some of the feedback that I started getting from some of them, because I would see, we'd go and have these great conversations and talk strategy and put together this plan. And I wouldn't see anything actually come from it. And I'm like, hey, where are you getting stuck? What's your roadblock? And a lot of them, especially not huge built out businesses, like most aren't, would say, like, hey, the strategy was awesome. We just don't have the bandwidth to manage the execution of it. And it was like, and it had that like light bulb moment of like, I need to do more than just the strategy. That's really the heavy lift part is the execution, right? The strategy is
Mm.
great, but they don't have the time to be able to do it, especially if they're founder led companies. So I was like, you know what? I think I need to expand out the team. So I started hiring a few folks and I'm like, you know what? We can handle the execution. And then I quickly realized, I'm like, you know what? I think we're turning into an agency. I think that's what this is now, right? So I ended up branding it to get hyped at the time. And we just continue to build it out and build it out to ultimately be a creator led performance shop, especially for those SMB brands that need both that strategy and support with that. But most importantly, they need that ongoing execution.
Mhm. Absolutely. I love the accidental entrepreneur story because that's kind of my story as well.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I accidentally just started a PR agency or a podcast agency or
Accidentally just happened, but it's
yeah.
what it does.
Well, and now you're general manager at Trevant, formerly Ad Parlor. So you're operating on an even larger scale from Get Hyped. So talk about that, leading a team inside a larger organization and that transition.
Yeah, and that happened at really a LinkedIn connection reached out and was like, "Hey, you know what? We are looking to build at the time a creator monetization tool and
Mm.
interested in your point of view on how we can build this out." And that's how some of the conversations started going. And I love the building stage. Like the building stage of a business, it's so fun building something from a ground up. It's challenging, it's different. So I loved helping and supporting them with that. And then finally it turned into, hey, would you want to work with us full time? And at the time I had brought on my husband on the Get Hype side. And so him and I talked and was like, would you want to take over operating Get Hyped? And I can take over helping this initiative. And at the time it was for a parent company, Fluent. And we're like, you know what? All right, we'll both build our own thing. So I moved over to there. And then ultimately, what I didn't know at the time at Fluent was that they had agency subsidiary within their parent company, which was a performance shop. It was a performance agency. And so as I started building this creator monetization tool with them, which was called Infuse at the time, they go, actually, you have agency background in influencer marketing. We actually have an agency that's interested in potentially adding creator as part of their offering mix because they're a performance shop. Would you be interested in going over there? And it's like, well, yeah, that actually seems like it perfectly aligned with my skill set. So I went over there, ended up building their end-to-end full service creator marketing offering from scratch, and which worked really well alongside their paid media and performance marketing services that they were offering to enterprise brands already. And then what we found after not really long period of time, after about a year or two, is that we were winning more on the creator side. It was becoming our differentiated offering because we had that strong performance DNA from the team who was doing media buying for 17 years and applied that to our creator marketing offering. So then we ended up completely pivoting the entire agency to being a creator marketing agency with that performance DNA, which ultimately led us to the rebrand that we're currently launching this week to Trevant. And it's been incredibly exciting. So now I have the honor of being the general manager and leading that team through this whole rebrand and transition. And it's been a blast.
I mentioned this a little bit before we jumped on. AI is doing so much. It's something that is top of mind in all of my classes right now. I'm teaching a class in digital media management, advertising, buying, analytics, measurement, and AI powers so much of what we do, but we still need that human component. And we're seeing that AI ads are not always performing as well. People want to make sure that they have that trust and authority, which is really where the influencers come in an ideal situation, right? But thinking about the performance piece from your own positioning statistics, I read that 70 to 80% of brands run influencer marketing, but only 30% can tie it to revenue. Can you talk about that? Because that seems like a huge missed opportunity. Of course, I know some of it's for brand recognition versus actual sales, but ultimately everything we do needs to tie back to the bottom line.
100%. And it's so interesting because even if a lot of the influencer marketing conferences we go to now, that is a huge topic, is there is now increasingly more and more becoming like the CFO level scrutiny when it comes to influencer marketing budgets because it's maturing as a service. I think for many years, it was that upper funnel brand awareness, getting, content, storytelling, and it still absolutely does that, right? It's still that content engine. You still get that user generated content. You still get that brand awareness and engagement. But if you're going to be taking, and we're hearing this a lot from advertisers, hey, you know what? We want to take some of these dollars out of our performance marketing budget and apply it to creator because we need more of that creative. We need more of that upper funnel and really that full funnel strategy. We need to balance that out a little bit more because I think we've kind of tapped our audiences on the bottom of the funnel. And the CFOs are naturally going, well, you're going to take budget out of performance and put it into creator. What's the ROI on that, right? Does that make sense? So we're starting to hear more and more that, yeah, they're really looking for the measurement of that. And there's more and more measurement tools that are coming out in the market. And now we're seeing a lot of brands not only using, source of truth like their GA4 or Adobe to be able to track more of that full funnel, but also using tools like MMMs and MTAs and really getting that multi-attribution and also running things like brand lift studies and things like halo effect reporting to understand what influencer is doing specifically, but also how is that impacting all of their other channels? Because the reality is, and the tough thing with sometimes influencer marketing and other marketing efforts too, is you see a creator, and I do this all the time. You see a creator, they talk about a shampoo, for example. I go to Whole Foods and I see that shampoo and I'm like, oh, nice. And I go and I pick it up and I put it in my cart and I leave, right? There's no attribution to that, right? I'm at one impression on their report in their campaign. And so there's also foot traffic measurement tools that are coming out that we're starting to test with as well, because the reality is it's all happening, but it's not being measured. So I think there's going to be a lot more scrutiny, especially with AI now coming into the mix. We're starting to do more AI measurement tools and AI searchability processes to ensure that influencer campaigns are also impacting AI searchability for those brands as well. So what we do on our side is really integrate into a lot of those platforms depending on what their goals are. If it's foot traffic, if it's an MTA, if it's, utilizing their GA4, if it's utilizing other third-party measurement tools, and we integrate into that so that the client can really see that full holistic picture and not necessarily just that those siloed social analytics that only tell realistically like 5% of the story.
Yeah. I love that. And it's interesting to hear how many new tools are coming out. And I'll be really curious to see how effective they are, as we're still trying to figure some of this stuff out. Can you talk about creator first performance marketing versus traditional influencer campaigns?
Yeah. So really the big difference between the two of them and at a high level is really adding amplification to the mix. So adding in paid amplification and putting media spend behind the creator content to amplify it to net new audiences. Historically, there's always been such a focus on organic creator content, right? So the creators obviously posting to their own audience, which is critically important because obviously the audience know, likes, and trusts that creator, and they're usually going to be really impactful to their own respective audiences. But it's not leveraging the content as far as you can really be leveraging it, especially when you can get amplification or whitelisting access from that creator in your contract with them. Put media spend behind it, and then really do hyper targeting to net new audiences. And of course, on the social platforms, you can target whoever you want to target, right? So you can get really specific with it. You can do A/B testing with it. You can do a whole test and learn strategy to figure out what performs well, what audiences don't perform well. Also, what creative, what hooks, what
Hmm.
angles
Hmm.
perform well. So that also helps you inform your future creator strategy because then you figure out, okay, these hooks will go well, these calls to action are working well, these angles are working really well, this problem solution concept seems to be working well for us. And then you can adjust that brief that you give to the creators moving forward based on what you know works well, and also ensuring that you have that authenticity with the creator and what works best too, and mirror those two things together so you also get learnings at scale too, which also helps improve performance. And what we see is that a lot of times creator-led content on paid social outperforms branded content because it's a third party saying, "Hey, this brand is amazing," versus the brand saying, "Hey, we're amazing," right? So it does just perform better, especially we've done a lot of comparison and testing of we'll kind of call our BAU branded assets versus creator. So it's super interesting the power of getting creator content really out there at scale.
And let's talk about what you look for in creators and influencers. And because I've seen stuff that says there's a shift to really micro or, smaller influencers, people who have a deep niche and maybe more engagement versus paying somebody that we all have heard about on the news a lot of money. So, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that perspective because you obviously came from this background and we're working with brands. And then what do you see that brands are looking for now? And how do you choose who you're going to work with on that side?
It's a great question, and that's also probably the most difficult part of, like, the sales process and working with a net new advertisers, figuring out what they want, because there are a million ways to slice and dice an influencer strategy with the amount of creators and the size of creators and the amount of content and the platforms and the deliverables, and it's really trying to figure out, okay, what is that client's goal? And sometimes clients have a strong point of view of what they want, and we can deliver on that, and some of them don't. They're looking for recommendations. And so our team really understands what are their goals, what are their focus, what's their target audience that they're looking to hit, what niche and vertical are they in, what are they trying to solve for consumers. And that helps us kind of narrow down what our focus is and as we think through a potential scope of work for them. And what we're seeing is it's pretty good mix of the different tiers. We have some advertisers that are really going to say, hey, we want a big splash. We want mass awareness. We want a big creator telling everybody how amazing we are. And we'll work with the Alex Earls or the Mr. Beasts or whoever it may be of the world who will drive that mass awareness and mass scale. Now, are they necessarily going to drive mass immediate conversions? Maybe not, but they are going to drive that mass awareness. And then there's also on the other side of the spectrum, those that say, you know what, I want more volume. I want a lot of creators talking about us. And I don't necessarily want to pay a ton of money for a lot of creators. Those micros and those nano creators are perfect for that because they're also perfect to get a lot of volume of content, but it's also great because it's less expensive content that you can get usage rates for to leverage for your other marketing efforts. So for paid social or other amplification, connected TV is becoming a big opportunity now in the creator space and amplifying content there. So we're seeing a lot of those that might do more of the volume game, though my personal favorite segment of creator is that mid-tier. So to me, they're the sweet spot, especially from a performance perspective, because they're the perfect mix of they're a little bit pricier, but they're not crazy expensive. Still fairly approachable price point, but they're established. They are still an established creator. They likely do this full time. They usually have a talent manager and they have built up a really decent sized audience because they are genuinely good at what they do. I noticed that mid-tier category from an organic performance perspective tends to perform the best. Though if you're amplifying the content and putting media spend on it, we've actually done some studies and learned that the size of the creator actually doesn't matter. So if you're doing it as part of a paid campaign, whether they're a huge mega creator or a micro, it really just depends on how good their creative is, not how large their following is, which is super
Yeah,
interesting.
that is really interesting. And can you define what do you consider mid-tier?
Mid-tier is usually in that and there's everyone has a different definition, but I kinda loosely consider it that 75,000 to about 400,000 follower range. So, they're not really super small micro, but they're not really a huge, macro mega creator either. They're in that kind of middle ground sweet spot.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I like hearing people's definitions.
Yeah, but you could ask 4 different people, and they probably all have a slightly different definition of how they how they consider each tier, but we're as an industry, we're trying to get there collectively.
Nice. And let's talk about the flip side of looking at things that, brands get wrong when they're thinking about the vanity metrics, impressions, likes, reach versus connecting to revenue. And you did mention some are looking for more of that awareness piece, but how do you decide what the right mix is and how do you share and tailor and recommend things to your clients for that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, we've had some clients, especially in the enterprise brand level, that do very much leverage influencers for that upper funnel, for the impressions, for the engagement. They have the budget for it, right? They have specific budgets for upper funnel versus bottom of the funnel. But what we have learned is, especially with on the Trevant side, is we have had a few advertisers come to us and say, yeah, we want more awareness. We want more people talking about us. We want more share of voice in the space. So we'll do a campaign. We'll also do some amplification for them. And there's been multiple times where we actually have a awareness objective, but yet still exceeded their CPA benchmark compared to their current paid strategy. So then they're like, wait, right? Go creator as much of our performance channel as much as we thought about it as an awareness channel, but now we're thinking about it a little differently. Maybe we start to think about this as more of a performance channel. So it's also amazing how quickly budgets unlock you're beating those CPA benchmarks and going back to that kind of CFO level, like, okay, I like what I'm seeing here. Let's double down on this. And so sometimes we've actually shifted away from brand awareness focus to more bottom of the funnel and CPA or ROI or ROAS focused because the client realized, hey, you know what? We can leverage creator content this way. We don't need to just leverage it for upper funnel. And they're still driving that content. They're still driving that awareness anyway. So they're still getting that, but they're really getting more of that full funnel strategy. And sometimes we have the clients too that will just say, hey, you know what? We do want more of a awareness focus, and that's just our goal, and that's the objective for creators, and that's great too. But we're definitely starting to see that shift of, hey, you can do more with creators than what you think you can be doing.
Fantastic. When it comes to the creators, you have a 9-step shield vetting process across 10 million plus creators. Obviously, we don't need all of your proprietary information, but I would love to learn about some of the factors that you look to that brands may overlook.
Yeah, it's absolutely the vetting process is such a critical part of the process. And there's to us, it's very much a data-driven combined with a human approach.
Mhm.
What we're starting to see, especially at a time of AI, that a
Mhm.
lot of agencies or consultants are leveraging AI a lot for that vetting process. And that's not 100% a bad thing, right? I think data does inform a lot of in terms of who's going to be the right fit, especially as you think of its audience demographics and psychographics and audience authenticity and engagement rates and all of those clear metrics that determines are you reaching the right people through that creator, which is critically important. Where a lot of, platforms tend to just miss is that human element to it of if you're watching their content, are they just a genuine good fit? Right? Can you see them talking about this and it's going to be that natural fit and it doesn't seem like it's going to be a total stretch from the typical content that they would do? What is their content type and does that really align with the brand messaging and the type of content that we're looking to do for this campaign? Brand safety, that's also a huge thing for clients, especially larger ones. And yes, sometimes platforms can catch some of that. And for example, sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not so great, right? Some of them, for example, will say, "Oh, this creator, major brand safety issue." We would look and she kept calling her food the bomb. And so
Oh, yeah.
she was just referring to the food as really good, right? But
Yeah.
it flagged her as, oh, major no-no from a brand safety perspective, right? So it's also that qualitative stuff of, okay, are they actually saying the bomb in the context of the food is delicious, right? And then there might be some stuff that they're actually saying that the platforms wouldn't necessarily catch that is a major no-no and maybe controversial or political or something that could absolutely put the brand at risk. So we look at all those things and it's really that human component too that the back end stuff checks a lot of the boxes, but that human component of is this content really going to work well organically? And also, is their content going to work really well paid? And do they really have that strong relationship with their audience? Is sometimes that strong gut check stuff that unless you're really going into it deep with those creators, it's very easy to miss.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see that how that happens. I mean, even for the podcast, I have my stats. I know I have my audience information. I have my safety rating and all of those things that I can share with potential advertisers or partners because it's important for me also to show up the way I want to show up and make sure that my guests are showing up the same way, right? I'd love to just take a little side trip here and talk about what was one of your favorite campaigns that you did as a creator and then on the other side, what's one of the favorite campaigns that you've put together?
Ooh, it's a good question. So I actually got to work on a campaign for the olive oil brand Filippo Berio. And this was a few years back. They were doing an on-site activation at this wine and cheese festival that was a couple hours from my house. And they, sponsored my husband and I to go. And, I had to create content, show the experience, and obviously focus on the product and creating the product and some fun recipes with that. And the wine and cheese festival was quite the vibe. It was it was a great time. There was wine flowing. There was all this amazing food tastings, which I got to participate in all of them. To me, some of the event-based stuff that I did as the creator were some of the most fun things. I also had to do an activation with over in Hudson Yards in New York where they were doing this boat caviar tasting event and promoting their caviar tasting boating event. That was also not terrible. Really, really enjoyed doing that. So some of those were really fun where I got to actually go out, meet new people. It wasn't just a face behind a phone where I actually got to meet people and talk to people. I got to meet with the brand and be part of this experience outside of just creating content. Those were absolutely some of my favorite ones. As far as the best one that we did for and on the business side of it, it is a good question. I would say some of the ones that we've done have been we did a few for Slim Chickens. So it was the fast food QSR that's really growing rapidly in the South. That was a lot of fun because if first of all, the creators down the South, they love themselves some Slim Chickens. So we got The response rate on that campaign was crazy. Usually it can be sometimes hard to get in with creators because there's so much demand. The response rate was almost 100% on that campaign. Every single creator wanted a part of it, and we got to do this really fun on-site activation where they got to do the whole experience of eating Slim Chickens, and we did a lot of limited time offer stuff where they got to do different tastings and share content, and the content was just so fun, and what I think was the best part about it is that the client was so great about giving creative freedom to the influencer and saying, you know what? Yes, we have some, guardrails as any brand does, but they allowed the creator create that native content that worked really well for their audience. So we got to have fun with it. And we got to work with some really big creators and big names who were, when I say amazing partners, they were just incredible. And we ideated and we were trying to come up with different concepts and fun ideas and also go just creatively different than what they've done before. And I think from a creativity perspective, it was one of the most fun because we had just really carte blanche to kind of do what we want, which we saw that in the performance that we got back. It's like the content was just fun. It was lively. The creators were on site. They were meeting with folks in the Slim Chickens team. It was just a really fun campaign and a nice offset sometimes to some of those campaigns that can be a little bit more rigid because clients are very strict from like a legal and compliance perspective.
Mhm. I wish they were in California because that sounds really fun.
I wish they were in Connecticut. I did get to visit them, but I do wish they had them fully up here because the food looked so good.
And it's really fun that they allowed for that creative license as well for the creators to come back with something special. And I know sometimes that can go awry, but as long as you have a good brief and you're working with creators who really understand, then there shouldn't be any problems. But that takes me to the other side, which is, of course, we're starting to see AI creators and we're seeing brands use AI creators that you honestly can't tell are AI. Now they can only create very short videos on social, right? Maybe 10 seconds. But they'll create an entire life for these creators and they also won't identify them as AI, which is an issue because we've seen that if you are not, I mean, there's a whole Instagram about like if you create, all these brands coming out and saying this does not have AI in it. Let me show you the behind the scenes because the ads look so perfect that people are thinking they're creating them with AI. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your perspective on this. And are you seeing it start to make any changes to the industry, or is it still small enough that it can be mitigated?
So right now, I would say it's small enough to be mitigated. I think that's going to rapidly change. So it's something that we're definitely staying ahead of. And I do think it has caused even more. I think consumers crave authenticity,
Yeah.
period, even before AI came about. And I think the craving for authenticity has amplified a millionfold now with AI creators coming out, where they're really leaning more towards those creators that they've been following for years and years that they do know, like, and trust. And it's like, a real person that's I know without a fraction of a doubt is telling me real stuff and also only promotes real products that I know I'm genuinely gonna like because they will only promote things that they genuinely like. And I love creators that will be extremely strict about the things and even turn us down sometimes and say, you know what, that product just doesn't really align with something that I would personally use. I will absolutely reach out to that creator again because they care and they will not sacrifice the trust of their audience. And they're willing to turn money away to continue to build that trust, which is amazing. I will absolutely go back and reach out to those creators and will absolutely favor them. And so there's definitely, I think, favorability towards those creators even more so, which is great and what I want to see. I think it'll be interesting to see as AI continues to blow up how we have to evolve as an influencer marketing space? And also, does it become a thing where advertisers want or need to start leaning into AI creators more because they start building more of those actual audiences and building more of the demand? I do think there'll be more scrutiny about the disclosing of it. And I think that'll absolutely continue, and there's going to be more of a crackdown on that. But it'll be interesting because you see that sometimes of someone people start off as weary about it, and then it becomes something becomes more socially acceptable. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in the future, but we'll see. Yeah.
And then that's another area where people are going to have to go, "Oh, my whole income is going away. What do I do next?"
Right, right.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't I'm hoping that a space where it doesn't off it just works alongside of the real creators and not in replace of. I think people always will still crave some of that human authentic connection, but I hope, right? We'll see.
Yes. When you are thinking, I know you talked about some of the numbers and with the type of creators that you look for. How often do the brands use first party data to make sure that they're really choosing or that you're choosing on their behalf creators that look the psychographics, the demographics exactly of their audience? Or do they ever say yes to people who might be slightly different, but that they still feel will be really genuine to the campaign?
Yes, and we love doing a little bit of that testing because sometimes we'll have clients that tend to work with the same type of creators, right? Maybe the same type of vertical or same type of creative or messaging. And I love the opportunities where we can push on them a little bit and say, you know what? I know this is a little bit of a test and not typically your MO of creator that you would work with, but we can see, based on either their content creativity or the type of, engagement they have with their audience that they could be a really great test. Could we test this out and just see how this goes? And I love when clients are like, you know what? Yeah, let's test that out. So I'll use the example of Slim Chickens. There was this comedy duo and they just did, and you've probably seen some of them where there's a few different ones like this where they're just sitting on 2 chairs and they're just throwing jokes, really dry
Mhm.
jokes back and forth at each other. And I'm like, "You know what? What if we test them and add some just comedic humor with, Slim Chickens being kind of at the center of it?" And they're like, "Yeah, all right, let's test it out." Right? Typically we go with the food creators and the fast food eating creators and the creators that are constantly eating or more lifestyle mom creators is kind of the norm for them. But it was like, all right, let's test something different. And the creators just had so much fun with it. And they were going back and forth between like dad jokes back and forth to each other, but then also having Slim Chickens as like the forefront of some of the jokes. And it totally stuck. It was such great content. And it was just really fun to be able to test different segments of creators that aren't obvious. And I'm seeing brands lean into that more and more where and they might be a dancing creator and the creator is kind of dancing and creating a brand dance and making a dance out of it. And it's just something that's a little bit different. It catches people's attention and I think it's nice because it gets them outside of that comfort zone, outside of just the typical creator and allows them to reach new audiences that they probably wouldn't have reached otherwise.
Yeah, no, that sounds really fun. I love the idea of it. I can't even conceive of what it would look like to create a brand dance for a chicken brand.
Yeah.
But it
I
sounds
hear
like, I mean, but it's something that I would
right.
watch because it is unique.
Exactly, right. It's like imagine just like a piece of fried chicken in their hand and they're like doing a little dance. Like, oh, you could have there's especially some of these creators are just so creative in their ideas. I'm a huge fan of we'll call the Zennial creators that tend to talk a lot of nostalgia of like the 90s and early 2000s. And some of them who will do that nostalgic content, but then tie the promotion in with their nostalgic content. And they do it in a way that's so flawless that you don't even realize you're watching sponsored content, but you don't care because it's so funny and it's so good and it's so value adding that you'll see in the comments, like, I know this is sponsored, but I don't even mind because the content is so good and you deserve every single dollar that you got from this campaign. So it's really cool to see also the audience kind of rah-rahing the creator for the partnerships that they're doing as well.
For people who are listening who haven't dipped their toe fully in working with creators and influencers, can you talk about the timelines from conceiving the campaign to choosing the creators to executing the creative to then getting the results?
Yeah, it usually takes about, I say 14 to 30 days on average. We do it in about 14 because we realize that most clients that when they want to work with us, they don't really wanna wait 30 days for content to go live because that seems like a really long period of time, especially when you invested into an agency and you're excited about it and you're like, "I wanna start seeing results soon," and when you start seeing that creator content go live, it's a celebratory, it's a fun moment, it's exciting, so we try to move really quickly on our end. The only thing that usually can slow down the process is really just client approval, so we do a very collaborative process, and most agencies do, where they have the ability to review the creators and they have the ability to review all the draft content to ensure that it's aligned with the creators they want, it's aligned with the creative they want, and can give any feedback and edits. So sometimes we'll bake in a little time depending on the client. So for example, if they are more enterprise, there's going to be a legal and compliance part of the process that's probably going to take a little time on their end, versus a S&B probably can turn it around in less than 24 hours, right? So we move fast on our end and kind of figure out what works best for the client to try to get out in market as quickly as possible, so that within 2 weeks, ideally 3 weeks, they can at least start seeing that content go live. And within a few weeks from there, they're getting enough data to actually inform some of that performance insights and figure out what we want to do and how we want to optimize future campaigns.
Oh, that's really amazing. Okay, so let's talk about the best platforms for content, because I know, obviously TikTok Shop is huge right now. And then we also have other for people buying clothing and stuff. There are alternatives to TikTok Shop. We're seeing even on Meta platforms that they're really trying to keep us in platform even to make purchases. Sometimes I have to go in and like click to go to the external link so that I can actually take more time and not feel like I'm forced into a buying decision right then. So can you talk a little bit about conversion and, online shopping, what you're seeing be most effective?
Yeah, TikTok Shop is becoming huge. We are seeing, I just did a pitch on that yesterday. We are just seeing the demand on that exponentially increasing. And the challenge with social commerce, because it is incredible in the sense that it is great for discoverability. We work with QVC, and QVC has been really big in the streaming space for a long time, and they're realizing, you know what, we need to change up our strategy and really double down on social, and they've been doing that in a really meaningful way. They actually got TikTok Shop Seller of the Year this year, which was incredible. It's such an amazing accomplishment for them. But we're seeing a lot of them improve their discoverability of the brand, especially with net new audiences on social through social commerce and TikTok Shop. And to your earlier point, it's interesting because you can get that impression and that first impression in a conversion in the same piece of content, which is changing the funnel really, right? To especially those impulse buys where I've definitely fallen victim of this. Scrolling and you're like, oh wow, that looks pretty cool. And it's right there and it's an approachable price point and my credit card's already loaded up. It's like, all right, and click it and you buy it, right? You already know it's at your house. So it's shortening that funnel in that sales cycle dramatically and allowing brands to reach audiences that they might not have reached before, which is allowing them to use like a TikTok Shop or even like a Meta as that initial discoverability. And then hopefully increasing customer lifetime value through their other retention efforts that they're doing, the retention marketing and the other retargeting efforts that they're doing as well. So we're seeing a huge explosion of that. I think the biggest challenge that a lot of advertisers are running into is, especially for like a TikTok Shop strategy, the amount of creative you need to get the engine humming on that, it's a lot. So we have close relationship with our TikTok partners, and we need about 150 assets per day from affiliate creators just to get the engine starting to hum a little bit, with some of the top performing advertisers on TikTok Shop generating 1,000 assets from creators per day. The reality is most advertisers do not have the bandwidth or budget to realistically manage that. So it's becoming highly, highly competitive, but those that really do put in the work and get and build up that creator community and build up that engine, the success that they're seeing is astronomical, right? And now it takes a lot of work to get there, but it is changing the game of how consumers figure out and find new products and their decision-making process. So it's pretty.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's an unbelievable amount of creative.
it it is crazy. It's crazy for us as an agency who manages it all day, every day. I can't imagine. That's why the demand is so high for advertisers to come to agencies, because even if they do have an in-house team, their in-house team is like, hey, we can only do so much, right? We can, and that's usually what we get in terms of advertisers that reach out to us, it's their in-house team that are like, there's like 3 of us and we are tapped out and we need help and we want to do more and our leadership team wants us to do more, but we're 3 people and we're wearing 17 hats and we need support. And that's really where we come into play.
Yeah. What is something that you love about being part of a bigger organization versus leading your own organization? Because I know they can be very different beasts.
So different. And absolutely like pros and cons to both. What I love about being in a bigger organization is there's a culture that's been fostered even before when I joined the team and still as I've been part of the team now for the past 4 years. It's a very culture-led organization, and the team is close, cares about each other, good people, works really hard. You can ask any single person on the team for something and they will drop everything and get it over to you. And so there's just been this amazing culture that was created. And to be able to be part of that culture of these people who are so smart and work so hard and willing to take the shirt off their back for anybody, it's just really, really cool to be a part of that and being able to lead the charge of these amazing people that are doing incredible things and seeing the things that they do all day, every day. It's been so much fun to be part of that. And also being able to drive more of that impact at scale, right? So being able to work with some of the largest brands in the world and being able to execute some of these really incredible campaigns and some of the accolades we've been able to drive from that and seeing the results of our efforts and the clients who give us kudos all the time and thank us for all the work that we're doing. It's as much as it's a tough job, it's such a rewarding one. So it's so cool to see that major impact that we can drive versus owning my own agency. It's yours, right? It's your baby. It's so much pressure because it is yours and you're ultimately the one signing the paychecks at the end of the day, but it's also your team and something that you created. And especially as more boutique agency, it's like we're not necessarily going to have as large of a scale of impact and as big of a culture, but also having something that you built from literally nothing with zero funding or really experience of how to build a startup or an agency at all and be able to build it into something meaningful, especially where you're helping to support a lot of those SMB clients that realistically could never do it themselves. That's also so cool to be able to see them grow and scale and knowing that you're a big part of that story.
Yeah. And that's a great place to mention Get Hyped is still around. I mean, as you said, your husband took it over, you're a strategic advisor. And I love that you serve very different audiences with both organizations.
Exactly. It works
Yeah.
out so well, and we're referral partners to each other too. So Get Hype tends to work more with that SMB type of client and works in those clients that have to be scrappy from a budget perspective, and they're looking for that really advisory role for the agency that they're working with, which is so different from the Trevant type of client that is more of that we'll call upper mid-market or enterprise client that has a huge team, but then has multiple stakeholders and multiple business units and teams that you're operating with, and it's complexity at scale. So they operate so differently, and it's great because sometimes Get Hyped will get a more enterprise level opportunity and they'll refer that to us, and we might get an SMB opportunity and we'll refer that to them. So it's been great to really help support both our organizations at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. What is one piece of advice you'd give to anybody who's listening who wants to dip their toe more into being a creator or an influencer?
I would say the first thing is focus on value. Focus on giving value to your audience. So people want to be either entertained or they want to be informed or they want to learn something. Make it to the type of content that is worthy for people to watch and stop and scroll, especially at a time where there's so much creator competition. There's so much content out there. People are doom scrolling really quickly. Make content that's really worth paying attention to. So figure out what do you really love or what are you really good at or what do you love, what it's something that you love to make, whatever it may be. There is quite literally a vertical for everything and there is an audience for everything. You'll be surprised and just have fun with it, be
Mhm.
passionate about it, and also be yourself, because that is your biggest differentiator, is that there's no one in the world that's exactly like you. You see a lot of these newly coming creators that try to, and not intentionally, but they're kind of ripping off other creators because they view them as aspirational, and they're trying to take some of those best practices, but it's obvious that they're trying to pretend like they're someone that they really aren't, and it's easy to do because sometimes you don't even catch yourself doing it, and I would find myself sometimes doing it. I would talk on an Instagram story, and my husband would go, "Why was your voice 4 notches higher than it normally was?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, you're right." I'm not even talking like myself. So the best thing you can do is just be your true authentic self and provide value. Figure out what that value proposition is going to be. And then the tough part is also have patience, right? So be patient. It does take time to grow, but if you continue putting in the work and provide value to your audience, you will see the fruits of it.
Yeah. And on the other side, of course, when a brand is getting started, what's the first step to their journey?
Yeah. So, especially if you're starting to work with creators, right? So, first, get help, whether it's bringing on folks in house or hiring an agency or bringing on a consultant, because influencer marketing is one of those things where it's very easy to spend a lot of money on it and not to get the results that you're looking for if the strategy is not right. So, find folks that know the space really, really well, especially if you are just starting out with it, that can provide you that strategy or that guidance or that execution. If you're trying to do it on a budget, hire a more boutique agency or get some offshore help or get folks that are willing to have a lot of expertise and support you with that. And then test, be patient and test and learn, right? So that's similarly, it's like there is a patience part of it where it's with, especially if you're just starting an influencer strategy, sometimes it takes a little while to do that test and learn process, figure out what creative works, what creators work, who do you want to turn from a one-time partnership to a brand ambassador ongoing, what works with organic audiences versus what works really well at scale. Try different things, even if it doesn't seem like it's the obvious thing to try. Try
Mm.
it anyway and just do a little bit of A/B testing and see what works and what doesn't. And then use that initial data and those insights to help inform what that future plan looks like, and just continue to learn, continue to evolve. And if you do that, you bring smart folks in, you continue to test and learn, you will see success from it. It's just a matter of the time and investment that you need to put into it, which sometimes for brands can be tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will obviously have your, links in the show notes so that people know how to reach out to get that expert help that we can use when we're trying to start campaigns so that we don't break the bank and make a lot of missteps, having the right person. And I think you've really helped guide us today in this conversation in terms of maybe not being as worried about AI influencer, realizing that we still want authenticity, we still want transparency, we want genuine conversation, genuine people that we know, like, and trust, to be putting out content for brands that we also love or that we want to learn about. So thank you for kind of dispelling some things that are out there and sharing others and the realities. TikTok shop. That's you know, so much content. And I don't think people necessarily realize these things when they're starting out or having that idea to switch.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's one of those newer, still newish, right? It's a few years old now, newish type of offerings, and it's exploding. But yeah, I think when we talk to advertisers and we talk about the meta content, it's usually quite a surprise.
Fantastic. Christina, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto, words that you live by?
Yeah, I do. It's the difference between a stumbling rock and a stepping stone is what you make of it. And I think it's so applicable for everything, whether it's career transition, whether it's trying a new digital marketing strategy, whether it's something that you're going through in a personal life. I found that every single time you think something might be a stumbling block, it's actually just a stepping stone to something greater. So keep trying, be patient, do new things, do what you love, and you'll end up exactly where you need to be.
Mm, fantastic. I love that. And that's one I haven't heard before, but it is so appropriate. So thank you so much for being on Your Brand Amplified today and giving us your advice and wisdom. And thank you to everybody who is watching this episode or listening to it on your favorite platform. I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share their story and their journey very soon. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrangamplified.com.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.
If you're serious about leadership, legacy, and building wealth with structure, you need to check out the CJ Moneyway Show. Hosted by CJ Moneyway, this podcast features powerful conversations with entrepreneurs, doctors, strategists, and global thought leaders who break down what it really takes to win without losing your integrity. This isn't surface motivation. It's discipline, clarity, execution. If you're ready to think bigger, build smarter, and lead with intention, tap into the CJ Moneyway Show, available wherever you get your podcasts.